Welcome to this week's podcast. Today I have with me my wonderful business partner and bestie, Miss Melanie. And I also have Gerard, who's one of our amazing teachers at Seasons of Seven. And today we are talking about a hot topic. And this is this place of the single mother, which is different than the place of the single father, but the place of the single mother and how we are raising our children. And I think there are differences we can talk to about raising sons versus raising daughters, and just sort of as we're walking this path. And it's a hot topic. It's a topic that, as you're listening to this as the recording, it's probably been edited 4 ways from Sunday because we don't know exactly what we're going to say yet. But I think it's an important conversation to have. And I think it's an important conversation because we sort of don't, especially if like we're walking the Waldorf path, we're always needing to be careful between being this permissive parent and that gentle parent. But we also have to pay attention to their development. And sometimes the single mom, we're so busy like making sure that everybody's needs are met, we forget that piece, that development piece of when that needs to shift. So we're just going to have this conversation, and hopefully it helps some other single moms out there. So welcome you to this podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I think just as important as walking that line between permissive and gentle parenting, we have the other end. A lot of people realize the difference between authoritative and authoritarian, which is you can get in trouble in
both ways. Absolutely. And I think truly for me, if you're walking this path as a Waldorf parent, like one of the best books you can dive into, well, there's a couple of Steiner lectures for sure. I love Education as a Force for Social Change because it's really like Steiner lays it out. If you don't do this, this is what happens. But also I really like Betty Staley's book, Between Form and Freedom, because she talks about the teenager. She talks about this space because they're not the 8-year-old. They're not the 6-year-old. They're a much different space. And we're going to talk about like spanning that entire space. But I think the place where a lot of parents get in trouble is when they're in that adolescent space, like after the age of 9, and we need to like remember that they need different discipline as they're growing.
Exactly.
So where do I want to start, y'all?
And you know, that's a beautiful way to start, because I want to hold the hands of a class 6 parent, because they're like deer in headlights. Where's my child? What has just happened?
Right, it's so different.
and I start always telling parents, painting them that beautiful picture of, this is wonderful, class 1, class 2, we get to the 9-year crisis, and then when we get to class 6, this is the difficult part. Are you the friend? Are you the mother? Are you the father? And it gets very difficult because they're not interested in things. They're pushing the boundary. They get quite cheeky, and you don't know what to do. And I think it is exacerbated when you're a single parent.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And I find that, I think through our time working with parents, you see patterns and you want to reach out, and often you have conversations, and especially when you see younger boys and there is a crisis or a difficulty,
right?
And I think it's a fine line, because as a single parent, you're trying your best. There's a lot of things that you have to do and remember. And you know, when you speak about teenagers have not changed from Greek times. They're the same. The same thing happens. So I think it's these moments that whoever watches this, that there is that time that have a conversation with someone, talk to someone, speak about what you find difficult. At the moment in my life, what I've created for the parents that I have is that a Friday, you can send me a mail and we can have a conversation, have a cup of tea, because things are changing in class 6.
I have to say that, yes, I think that you're right. There is a crisis, but it doesn't always have to be that way.
I completely agree. I meant to say too, when we started, I was a single mom and I was raised by a single mom. Melanie has been a single mom for almost 14 years. and Gerard was raised by single moms. So we do have background in this. We're not just people that are coming to this without any background. We understand what it's like to walk in those shoes. We understand what it's like to be children of single moms, whether they did a great job or didn't do a great job, or sometimes did a great job and sometimes we're just surviving, which is part of what happens when you're a single parent. And then also like walking the path of trying to make sure that we're not trying to be mother and father, but we do have to hold that space and find those other strong men in their children's lives that will help fill that gap a little bit. So I find that piece is important. And I think that if there's single moms out there that aren't doing that, I think especially for boys, it's important to have somebody else in their life. And it doesn't have to be another partner. So go ahead, Melanie.
What I wanted to say was it doesn't always have to be a crisis. I have a boy turning 14 soon, and I enjoy him immensely. I like him as a person. He's kind, he's respectful, he's smart, he's funny. And I'm sure that part of why he's the way he is who he is, God-given character. But I also think that part of it is the choices that we've made as a family and that I've made and the sacrifices that I've chosen. And so I want to be able to share that with people, that if it can help, to show the path and the choices that I chose. And because he's a wonderful, wonderful boy.
Yes, I agree. And I don't think it's just how he showed up. I think it's definitely that nurture space too. And I think that that's so important. I work with so many parents that are like really struggling in this space. And I think it depends too how supportive the ex-partner is. And if there's a lot of frustration with the ex-partner, it makes it definitely harder for the single mom, because then you're constantly like fighting that piece. Or if you have a passive ex-partner, then you can breathe out a little bit and you can do more of the things that you want to do without having to fight so much. Because so often, sadly, when people are breaking up, it is more about hurting each other than what should we do for the child. And so I think that is often an important factor. And I think often mom is like trying to make up for the fact if dad is not in a good space. And I think that there's so many different ways that we can go about that. So I want to hear what you think about that, Melanie. Like how you purposefully worked on this with your son.
So several factors when you either become a single mom or if there was never another parent present, you always have to choose how you show up every day. And we talk about that all the time, how you show up every day. Because as a single mom, there's so much going on every day that you can't, unless you're a single mom, I don't think you can understand what it's like to not have, any.
Right. We're doing it all.
Right.
If we decide not to do the dishes at night, guess what? They're still there in the morning.
Yeah, but it goes further than that. It goes, but sometimes, I have friends that say, and I'm jumping forward now, but sometimes I have friends that say, hey, why don't you go get your nails done while your child is in tennis practice? And I think, yeah, that sounds good. But part of my brain goes, and I said this to one of my friends, part of my brain goes, what if I get in a car accident while I go get my nails done? And then there's no one looking for this child at the end of the day. And this is like something that my friend went,
that's only a single mom thing.
I never even thought that was a thought you could have. And so there's a lot going on that you can't really comprehend unless you've lived it. And that's okay. I don't expect anyone to comprehend that. But what I was going to say was, when all this stuff starts happening, you have to choose how to show up, because you want to fill them with love, but you also want to get things done. You want to make sure that they're well raised. And so you're balancing this line between gentle parenting without falling into permissive parenting. And when you're very busy, I think that happens very easily, right? You want to say yes, and so you just automatically say yes. But it can happen on the other end, where you want discipline, and so you want to hold your boundaries, but then you end up just being really strict, and not just strict, but authoritarian, where like your way is the highway and there's not much love being felt. There's love there, but there's not much love being felt. And so I think that is the major thing that happens, is you have to, and I think that's a conscious decision. You have to
Oh, I totally think
decide.
it's a conscious decision, just like it's a conscious decision to make sure that you are in some way taking care of yourself, whether it's making sure when they're little, they're in bed on time so you can get on bed on time so you can get the rest you need, because you can't show up as the person that's balanced unless you're rested so that you have your bucket filled. Because otherwise, if you are approaching daily, like daily work with this child and all you're doing is fueled by coffee, it's going to crash at some point, and you're going to go from being the permissive parent to then the like authoritative parent, because you've lost the plot and everything is a mess. So I
But
think
you
it's
see, it's
that
also,
balance.
it becomes that authoritative parents becomes fear-based, because you think,
Right.
I'm living in fear of, is everything okay? So, you know, it's like when people are always shouting and screaming, and that's your fear. Or if you always find, okay, this is funny, that's your coping mechanism. And of course, some people are just, you know, this is the way and the rule.
Right.
So, and it's a difficult thing to find that beautiful balance. And
It takes
you know,
practice.
It does, and it takes
yes.
being humble, because
Yes.
it's okay to say, well, actually I said yes,
Yes.
but really I shouldn't have. I made a mistake. The answer is
Yes.
no. Because I love you, because of this, and this, the answer is no. But it's also okay the other way. You know what? I said no, but I didn't think it through, and it should have been yes.
Exactly.
Amen. I agree with that 100%. I think.
And that happens. That happens even like with us. You know,
Yeah, well,
we made
even people that have partners, you should be in that humble space. Agreed.
we made the mistake once of saying, yes, you can have a party, and we weren't going to be there. And goodness gracious, you know, you get ice cold. And we called them. We said, no. What? I think that's the first time that we went back on it, and we went, no, what were we thinking? And
Right.
we'll have it. And thank goodness we did. And I think that's okay. I find as well with the parenting to sometimes say, I'm sorry. You know, you get the parents that they don't apologize. They don't apologize for their behavior. They don't apologize for making a mistake. And I just believe in that it works. I'm so sorry about that. Let me explain what happened. Maybe I was a little bit tired, and especially I've older children, and they understand that. But it doesn't become a pattern, so that you stay conscious of that.
Absolutely.
You know, that you want to. Otherwise, it's, oh yes, dad's always grouchy, always moody. It's always, you know, for me, I always say to you when we have conversations, it felt like we finished school yesterday, and I wake up in the morning and there's 3 children, 2 at college, 1 in high school, and you think you've got 2 classes, and you think, gosh, I remember when I had to study for a history exam, and now, now I have to deal with a child that's in camp in America. So
Right.
it, it's not easy, and it's and I have to just bring a little bit of a perspective of my brother's in the UK, and he's a single dad. His children are also older. He got divorced 3 years ago. I had the opportunity to go and visit him and to see with this man raising children as well. Do you know, it was phenomenal to see this beautiful structure of, and the love and the care, and of course the discipline comes in, and you have to and I think a divorce is always a traumatic thing, and you've got to watch your mouth and how you speak about the other, and we don't always succeed in that. But it was a beautiful moment to see 2 brothers being able to speak of what you've accomplished with your children when you think about your childhood that you had.
Sure.
And
No,
so
I was just going to say, do you think that was that the fact that you and your brother were raised by a single mom, it probably affects how he is parenting as a dad?
it is, and you know what, you know, you look at it, and I think he's got his traumas that he's working through in relationship and trust issues, and he has to work with that, and I think you have to go to that place where you, and Melanie asked the question of how do you perceive that as a person now with single moms, because it wasn't an easy relationship with us and our mother. And you sit back and, you know, I think everything at the moment has to be, you have to find that love in anything that you do. When anger comes, you have to say, why is that person behaving like that? That's hard for her, or it's hard for him. And it's not always easy because we are choleric, we are phlegmatic, and it's a process, it's a journey. And so when you see it, you have to be gentle in that, in offering, I can help you, because you can't. You're not in that single mom's shoes, and you need to create a space for someone to feel safe to be able to have a conversation with you if they want to.
But I think one thing that is helpful when those single moms reach out to you as a teacher, because you had the experience you did, you can listen with a different ear than somebody who either hasn't been a single parent or hasn't been raised by a single parent, because you have that other experience, just like Melanie and I have that other experience. When somebody wants to bend our ear about that single parenthood space, like that, it feels different than somebody who has absolutely no concept of what that's like, because it is a vastly different space. I mean, I think about so many people that I talk to, they're like, don't you ever just get annoyed? Because we don't have another parent to be like, please go bother your dad. Like, so you have to, like, you have to be in your own skin and be feeling good, because I can think of several times as a single mom where I was like, I remember my son was going through the 9-year change, my oldest, and he was asking me questions. I was at the check, for some reason he was just with me that day, and I was going through the self-pay and I was scanning. He was like, why are you buying that? Why are you buying that? And I was like, listen to me, I am divorced for a reason. Asking me why I'm buying all these things. And then of course I had to turn and apologize, because I said talk that way to him.
And that's
but it's that space of like, we have to be able to apologize, but we also we are it for them.
Correct.
Because 9 times out of 10, not 9 times out of 10, not 10 times out of 10, but 9 times out of 10, if dad is not involved, mom is the only emotional support this child is getting.
Yes. And I have to say that that is one of the big reasons why I felt very, very, very strongly about homeschooling.
Yeah.
So I really felt that with this kind of hole that he wants to fill, right? That I wanted to be the one to fill it. I wanted to be,
or to help him.
I didn't want it to be filled by being raised by his peers in a public school system. They're so open, they're craving that so much, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be the one to fill that part of him that needed the comfort. And so I think that that was very important to me, and I struggled. I had to make sacrifices to be able to stay home with him, but it is completely worth it. It's difficult, it's not easy, but I do believe that it's so important, and that it was healing. It was healing to have me there, and I had to be strong, and I had to make the right choices. And it was hard at first. And yes, I think I was tough. If you ask him, he says, no, I was not, because I was firm yet kind.
Yes.
And so I think that that's a good place to start for single moms is, how do we make progress? And I think that like those boundaries, firm and kind, are very important. And then also what Gerard says about making decisions in love, because that yes and that no, if you look at it from a place of love, you'll make the right choice. So for example, Gerard, your party example, you said yes, and then out of love and care for the child, you're like, no, that's a terrible idea. Right? So it's not just out of fear, it's out of love. You need to make the correct decisions, and it's okay to change your mind. And I think a lot of single moms think that they'll look wishy-washy if they do that.
Correct.
But no, it shows your humanity. And it shows that you're,
and I think it depends on how you show up. If you always show up wishy-washy, then it's going to sound wishy-washy. But if you show up firm and loving, then it's not going to sound wishy-washy.
Exactly. And you know what we always, when we together, we always speak about, we all have our roles and our things to play. And I think you've learned a lot through your hurts and the things that you want to change. I'm one of those people that think every day I want to do something. I don't want to go to the old patterns. And if I feel they're creeping in, I feel no, stay the course. This, I don't want to go there. Those things will always be there. And I think when I became a parent, for me, I did a lot of work to make sure that I would deal with those kind of things and have this. I would be okay if I was a single parent because we agree on the same thing. And you know my wife, and in our house, I always make the joke. It's not good cop, bad cop. It's bad cop, worse cop. You know, you can't either go and ask dad. You'll lose. You know, and don't go and ask mom. The older they get, they know there are some things that trigger us maybe more. So they'll talk and not to play anyone up against each other, but to spare someone's feelings. They know what
irritates. Dads parent differently, so yes,
100%. But they know we're on the same page, and then we'll temper each other in ways to say, you know what, that wasn't cool, not in front of the children, but you know that you'll be fine with it, and you know, like, and I have a 20-year-old son. He's busy mowing the lawn at the moment. And he's a guy that I can also ask anything for. He's kind, he's gentle, he's a good guy. And I look at it and I look at his beautiful masculinity. And he was born with that. But there's also, we worked at that. You know, we wanted that. And outgoing. And that's the thing that you want to have a legacy. You know, you want to say, he's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. And that's all you can do. And, you know, I mean, Melanie, when you were saying it's this thing of, oh, I'm going to do my nails, something happens to you, you have to come to the place, but look at everything he has become, even as this 14-year-old. He's okay. You know, we want that. That's all we want for our children. That we want them to be safe. We want them to be kind. We want them to be good. We want them to be upright. When they leave a room, people must go, gosh, that was something else we've just met, you know? And that's all we can do. And after a while, when anything happens, our mortality, you're on your own. You know, we have these conversations. What about my children? There's nothing you can do. You have done enough. And so we want to get to that place of when somebody is alone in this, that they can say, please help, you know, or just give me, I just want to talk.
Reaching, like having the courage to reach out to somebody. Because I think something that's interesting too, often parents will say to me, oh, well, they're 10, they're 12, they're 14, and I haven't held the line. I can't hold it now. Oh, yes, you can. It will be rough. It will be rough for a few weeks. But once they realize there's a new sheriff in town, they'll fall in line. But you have to get right with you and who you are and how you want to show up and the parent you want to be. Once you're right there, the rest of it will follow.
And that's okay. Do you know, you have these moody teenagers, you know, like always you knock on the door and you go, hi, can I make a cup of tea? Are you okay? You know, and you pussyfooting around, you know, people that are moody and cross, like morning person. Good morning, my child, and you get a grunt, you know, and then all three of them are like that at one stage, and then you think, okay, well, that's enough. Okay, that's enough. I'm 51 years old. In my own house, I'm walking on eggshells. And I made a joke the other day and said, and are you contributing to the rent? Can we greet each other nicely? And it's okay to have that, you know, and then we catch ourselves, because it's wonderful when they say to, why is dad so quiet? Oh, no. Oh, so can you see dad's also moody today? What does that feel like? You know, so, and then, but it's the humanity of finding each other around the dinner table and talking about your day and being okay. I understand that you're in a bad mood, or what can I do? Sometimes they just need a hug. You know, Melanie, I've got a 14-year-old at the moment, and it's wow, it's difficult. You know, she goes inward, she's quiet. Yesterday, I just walked into her room and I said, "Are you okay, my child?" And it was a lot. There are tests and there are projects and people are mean and boys are saying bad things. And of course, dad just won't, you can feel the Hulk growing in you and you've got to, otherwise she doesn't want to share that with you.
Right.
It was a hug, and you could feel, and she was just crying, and I can't fix anything for you, but I'm here. I want to, but you can't. And that's all she wanted. And Dad, I don't want, the one day she said to me, you get cross when I tell you, or you get upset when I hear somebody said something, a boy said something to me. And, you know, like I say, we talk about mama bears, but daddy bears are the same. I just want you to listen. And you think, oh, okay, why didn't I think of that? So
I could do that.
You said something really important right there. And I think all moms can do this, but I think about my time as a single mom wanting to do this more. Like, we often, and I don't know, I would love to hear you weigh in, Melanie. We often feel like, oh, we have to fix it. And there comes a point where, especially in their childhood, in this, like, especially in this like teenage space, this early teen and later teen space, where we can't fix it for them. We have to let them fix. Like, we had an incident yesterday, and you know, I'm not a single parent anymore, but this is just the teenager space. We had an incident yesterday where she was sad, but it was that relief that comes, that crying that comes after you've been angry. And so then
yes,
afterwards she felt like, oh, I just needed you to listen to me, but I feel so much better because I spoke up for myself. And if I rush in there and try to fix the situation, she doesn't learn. And I think it's so important for all parents, but I think especially as single moms, because we are so loving and we want to be giving everything, we want to fix it. We want to fix it. And there comes a point in their childhood where we have to say, it's okay, you can fix it. I'm just going to be here to listen to you.
Well, I think that it's very important to listen and to pick your times where you're going to try to help and the times where you're just going to listen. And here's my perspective on that. So, not all the single children, not all the single moms' children take this on, but a lot of them start taking on kind of a protective caretaking piece, because especially, the older boy or something, because, there is no man in the house. And so they take on this almost parenting caretaker protection piece. And if you don't just sit and listen sometimes and just let them figure it out, or not do anything about it, or always try to always react or make a big deal, and sometimes those children can start feeling like, I don't want to share that because it's too much. Mom won't be able to handle it. Mom's going to get too anxious. Mom's going to cry. Mom's going to freak out, and so they just don't want to share that. And so there's so much power in just sitting and saying, that's so hard. I'm so sorry you went through this. That's so hard. I can't, and let them just see that you can handle where they're at, and that you don't necessarily have the power to do anything about it, but you can handle it, and you'll just sit with them and it'll be okay. But you have to be very mindful about them not wanting to add to your troubles, because then they stop coming to you.
Right. Absolutely.
That, Melanie, that's the most powerful thing, because we've had moments. My children are now of age that they have friends. They do go out. There's designated drivers, all those kind of things. I always thought that I was going to be the cool parent. Yeah, you can do. And so they let me know 3 weeks in advance, we're going to this function, and I'm very cool. Oh, that's great. And of course, on the sidelines, palpitations and all kinds of things. And there are these moments, because you're a dad, you're a boy, you were a teenage boy, and then you share information, and it's not always listened to, but dads and moms, we know. And it's these beautiful moments that there's always the reflection when they come back and they tell you everything. They tell you. And it is that very powerful thing, and it is in our home. 3 o'clock in the morning, you phone. I will be there, and I will not give you a hard time, no matter what. No matter what. Not you come because, and that's it. That it's so beautiful that Dad, I was scared. Dad, and I had to get the phone call, Dad, please. And it's 2 minutes, and I'm there, and it's fine because they're your children. And as soon there was a time that, oh no, we can't tell Dad, he's going to get upset. He's going to, and I heard that, and I thought, no, rein that in. And then it's such a powerful, you feel like the coolest kid in class when they go, Dad, can I share something with you? And you go, sure, go ahead. And inside you, woo, they're talking to me. And you go, yes. And they walk away and you go, look at that. And it has to be like that because it's not easy because you want to protect. And I think behind closed doors or whatever with a friend, do that, but they need to know, they don't need to know that they're adding to your anxiety.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that's super important. And I hadn't thought of that, Melanie, but I think you're totally right. And I think it is different for girls, but in a different way. I remember like growing up with a single mom, I didn't feel like I had to protect her as much, but I actually feel like she felt like she had to protect me more. Like you're a growing woman in the world, and I know what it's like to be a woman in the world, and it's hard. So I need to make sure you know how hard it is, kind of thing, which was her way. And it made me into the adult I am today, but it was much different when I was a single mom and with my sons. It was much more like what Melanie is mentioning. So I think it is very different if it's boys or girls. And I think the pearls that we're sharing here are pearls for all parents, not just for single parents, but I feel like as single moms, we're so busy trying to do all of the other things that it's a really important piece to not forget to like take in that you are the person that they're turning to. And I think it's especially important when the other parent is absent or fighting you constantly. Your child has to see you as a place that they can come to emotionally, and that you're not going to fall apart, and that you're not going to freak out, and that you're going to just listen. And that's hard. So make sure you take care of your own ish. Like,
right.
Take care of those things. If you need therapy, get in therapy.
I think teaching them to solve their own problems starts really young, though. I remember a situation so clearly. Ulrich must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 maybe. And we got invited to the neighbor's birthday party, but the neighbor wanted a breakfast pajama party. And my son is very proper, and that comes from him being born that way. He just likes things done a certain way. And he is 4, and I find him sitting in the bathroom on his little steppy stool thing. One leg has pajamas and the other leg has pants. And he is crying. And I'm saying, "What's wrong, baby?" And he's just like, I just feel stupid." Like, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Well," he goes, "if I wear my pajamas in the day when I'm supposed to be wearing my clothes, and I show up and no one's wearing pajamas, I'm going to feel weird. But if I wear my clothes and everyone's wearing pajamas, I'm also going to feel weird." And he just couldn't wrap his mind around what to do. That was a big dilemma for him. So I sat next to him in the bathroom, and instead of just telling him what to do, I said, "Well, can you think of anything that would make you feel safe, that you could do that would make you feel safe?" And I said, and he said, "No." And then I said, "Well, what would you feel better wearing, your pajamas or your clothes?" And he said, "Absolutely my clothes, but I don't want to be the only one not in my pajamas." And so talking it through, then he came up with, what if I wear my clothes and bring my pajamas and I can change? And then that's what we did. And he was really happy with that. But, of course he was 4. I coaxed him there.
Yes.
But he felt like he figured it out.
Right, right.
And I think it starts really young, and it's a silly example, but
No, but it is a great one because we can't always solve it for them. It's a good thing for us to be able to help them solve it for themselves.
But as a single mom, that took me 30 minutes. It would have been a lot easier to be like, suck it up, go put on your pajamas, we're going to the party. But
Right.
in the end, what served us more in the long run?
You took the time. You took the
And
time, and I hear that because I think, you know, when I was a single mom, I had three, and you always feel pressed for time. You always feel like there's not enough of you to go around. Um, it is so important though that we remember, wait a minute. One, these children chose us. Two, we chose the situation we're in. So like karmically, we have to like figure out what is it that we're trying to bring to these children. And it's not us in a rush all the time. It's them knowing that if they need us, we'll slow down and listen.
and show up.
And I'm guilty of rushing.
Did you always show up for your boy? It doesn't matter how much of a rush you're in, you always show up for your boy.
I try to.
I've witnessed that because I do think it's easy to get, but I'm not, you're busy is not the busy I mean. Like it's so easy as a single mom. And I remember being in this place like, oh, I gotta think about this now, and I have to think about this now. And oh my gosh, thank goodness I don't have to think about him anymore, but I gotta think about this and this and this. And it's so much stuff that really the best gift you can give yourself as a single parent is to learn how to quiet your mind and learn how to slow it down and learn how to sit in silence with yourself. And when all the thoughts are crazy and raging and going on, is to quiet those and go, okay, well, actually don't have to think about that right now. I mean, I think Steiner's work is so good, like the 6 exercises, the backward review, pick something.
Backward review.
Backward review is amazing. Like
So
pick
powerful.
something and do that so that you are like unraveling this piece that doesn't need to be, because our brains start to get ahead of ourselves and then we get anxiety and we get frustrated and we get worrying about things that we don't have to worry about right now.
You know, if I could give any golden nugget from this podcast, and this just worked for me, but if single moms don't know about the backward review, I think that saved me in itself, because
Why don't you explain what it is really quick for people who don't know?
oh, me? Okay.
Especially since you used it so well.
So you go through your day, but in a backwards manner, but everything happens backwards. It's not just this happened before this or this happened before this. You actually see it like on a rewind in your brain, right? And so what happened for me is people that were saying hurtful things or doing hurtful things literally took them back. And things that were being done to me literally were being undone. If you really meditate on it and visualize it and feel it, and I'm getting
Goosebumps as you're talking about it.
because I'm talking about it, things were undone. Things were healed by visualizing that. And it was so powerful, so powerful. And you just go from the last thing that you remember and you go backwards all the way through your day. And it seems maybe that it wouldn't help and that it's silly, but it is one of the most powerful healing things I have ever experienced.
Amen to that. I completely agree. I completely agree. I think that there's there's two things that's happening. One, that you're saying too, amazing. But also as we quiet, we're just unraveling that piece, that ball of yarn that's all tangled is just getting unraveled slowly and slowly. And as we're unraveling it, we're calming our nervous system. We're calming that, like, because otherwise, like, everything is crazy all day long. And as we're slowing down, I love to do it before bed. Often I don't get very far. I fall asleep before I get very far. But it's a really good piece to do before bed.
But I went back and did some reverse visualization on things that happened to me as a child, because it was so powerful. The things that happened to me as a child, I just meditated on that, and it is so healing. It's It's a brilliant piece of advice. And I
No,
highly,
I think it's great. I think it's great. I also did, in the last Auriel's Light, we did a healing generational trauma meditation, and it's a timeline meditation. So you're going backwards in your timeline. It's not the backwards review, which is completely different, but it still has that same space where you're looking at something from a different perspective than you could look at it before.
right.
I think it's so important as we're walking through our healing journeys, because most of us that are single moms, we have ish to work through. Like, you didn't just become a single mom. You just didn't
Right.
get up one day and go, I'm a single mom today. You're working with something about, maybe you have a father wound that you're working on, or you've got, something happened in your marriage, or so, like all of those pieces where you didn't just decide, hey, I'm gonna just try this. You have things you have to work on. And so I think all of the tools that you can use, because I think if you don't, then you become in a situation where your kids grow up and they don't want to talk to you.
I actually haven't taught Ulrich how to do backwards review, and I really think that I definitely should. But we
It's a good
have
idea.
done the rewind the situation, which I don't know
Okay.
if anyone has done that with their kids, but it's hilarious. So when things are out of hand, they're going badly, I've done the pause, let's rewind this, and I take his hand and I literally walk backwards. I go, and he just laughs, right? Because it's
Right?
funny. And I say, let's try it again. And then I make him react. And at first he's like, oh, but then he laughs and it's better. And so, we try the situation again and we do it again. And, it's just a little bit funny.
I think it's great. I think it's great. We had a therapist at one point in time when the big kids were little, and he was like, you need to introduce the 5-second rewind. Doesn't mean you can say whatever you want to say and then say 5-second rewind, but it does mean that you can offer, do you need a 5-second rewind? Do you need to try that again? Do you need to rethink that? Because I think it's so important to allow kids to be in that space.
Yeah. Melissa, earlier you said something important. You said you mentioned, having positive male role models in their life when the dad's not in the picture. And I remember when we hired Gerard at first, I was thinking, oh, I wish my child was in class 2 at that time, because he didn't have that strong person in his daily life at that point. Since then, we've found his tennis coach, which has been a huge blessing on many fronts for him. But what I wanted to say is interesting is Gerard is currently in our class 6 going through these 12-year-olds, and our class 1 going through with the 6-year change with the first graders. And so it's a very powerful place for us to have a good, strong role model. And I was wondering, Gerard, could you say a few words on how you're helping families navigate through that?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So this is the wonderful thing. I think, firstly, as a Waldorf teacher, you must look at what it's doing for you. So it tempers you so beautifully to come down to class 1. And, when you kind of set the tone of how you want your borders and your pictures and, and you're doing your drawings, and then you look at the children's work and you go, oh, look at that. And they're holding up these pictures and they're smiling. And what is wonderful is to be constantly the self-deprecating of, can we make mistakes? And it's okay. But when I speak to the class 1 parents, I say, you've chosen this, hold on to this, go the distance. Please go the distance. Just, you are on that beautiful path. And then when you see that, when you look at the children's work and you see how upright they are, you think, okay, you've won half the battle. Please, the attacks of slings and arrows, like the poem says, just go the distance. Class 6, you know what? This is a big, beautiful class. There are 20 children. People have joined, and so now when you have these parents' meetings, you can see people are taking notes and talking and saying, because they're going to say, I don't want to do this. No, you must do this. So as much as we've spoken about the love, there's also what I like, the tough love.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
no.
And it's just as important.
Because this is important for you. It's you doing that drawing not to impress me, you or your you are doing it for you. So if it's slapdash and it's not your best, what are you doing? Literally on a soul level. Okay,
Right.
you're going to constantly do that. So for me, I say to the parents, do the same thing, do the same thing, do the same thing. there is safety in there. There is security in that. Do the same thing. We're living in a time where, okay, now what's next? What's next? What's next?
Right.
So, and you know what, Melanie, when I do that top down and I do the border, and I do the border, and I do the border, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, same thing. Are they're gonna all leave? Do the border and then blend it, and you know what's happening? There is safety. The children feel secure. Once they have that security, that's their strength. That is their strength, because what's happening now, children will go, it's 9 o'clock, I'm tired. No, mom's tired. But so it's the reach out, it's the constant. And for me, I'm very passionate about rites of passage with I've done it with boys, we've experienced that with girls as well. And I get sad for that, and where children are in general. I don't want to just say, okay, boys or just girls. So we try and we fail, we make mistakes, but we pick up and we're conscious. So I say that to parents: just be kind to yourself, for one thing, and then just keep talking.
Yeah. I think that you said something that I think is really important, regardless of whether or not you're a single parent or not. And that is, we have a standard that we should be expecting from our child. And just because they're not turning it into a teacher like you, they're turning it into us, and we're the teacher. So it doesn't meet your standard, and they're in this preteen space, and you just want to be done, and you just want to be able to mark the box. I did it. We finished. No,
it's dangerous.
you have to teach them to hold that standard, and you have to ask yourself every now and again, is my standard too high? Is my standard too low? Like, where am I, like, in this space? But I think it's really easy as a homeschooler in general to be like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's we're just gonna let it go. No. Because so what tends, and this is just a pearl of wisdom I want to give to anybody that is going through a divorce, fighting for homeschooling, like any of those pieces. Do not be lax in your standards. Do not be lax in what you're requiring of your child, because that other parent that you might be fighting to homeschool, they're not seeing the work you're putting in.
No.
Are you putting in work? Are you doing the planning? Are you making sure your child is doing that? Because they need to see that. And as frustrating as it is to have the other parent argue with you about homeschooling, we also have to realize, hey, wait, if they're asking, and it's not just because they want to be mean to me, it's because they're concerned about their child's education. And guess what? They're allowed to be concerned about their child's education because they're their other parent. So we have to, as we're walking this path of homeschooling these children, we have to be willing to hold the line and hold the standard and create the standard and have it be consistent. So I love what you're saying there about keep doing the work, keep doing the work, keep doing the work. Even if they're fighting you, keep doing the work.
And I want to just bring it back to parenting. And I want to bring a story like Melanie was talking about the son and not knowing what to wear. I've spent a lot of time with my firstborn to talk to him about grooming, and the beard has now started. It's not growing fully. He's got his aftershave, and he's found this beauty. It's his first love, and it's beautiful, and it is so. And he dotes on her, and he cares for her, and you know what started to creep in? I see the hair's not being brushed, and I see there's a hole in the shoe, and I had to have that conversation where I took him one side and I said, "You have a hole in your shoe." I said, "You have a hole in your shoe," and he goes, "Yes, Dad." I said, "Have we just met for the first time? You have a hole in your shoe, and your hair is not brushed. You've become complacent. Complacency is like mediocrity." I said, "I don't need you to excel. You have your beloved now, okay? It doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there." And his big brown eyes went bigger and bigger. I said, "It turns on a dime, my son." I said, don't become complacent in your work, in your appearance. Each time you put on a pair of jeans, or will she like it? Is this good enough? Don't become complacent, because after a while, oh, is this the bare minimum? And that's how you are. Is it going to be with work?
We live in a
Is
bare minimum society. So yes, right.
And I said, and do you see that I don't have holes in my shoes ever? I said, and you have many shoes. So, okay, Dad. And then I said, no, 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 we're not finished. And it was a beautiful moment. It's just the consciousness of bringing. And when I tell the shoe story, it's like when you look at the work and you think, no, no. And this is where we come back to, you were allowed to say to your child, that's not good enough.
Right. We're doing this again. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you understand
Absolutely.
their tantrum and their frustration, that's their issue. It's not yours.
Right.
Go
I
away.
completely agree. Especially after about fourth grade, the buck stops here. Like I find fourth grade is this great space of consolidation, because here's the thing, the child knows they're not doing their best work.
Absolutely. And they don't feel good about it. That's partly why they're acting the way they do. They don't feel good.
Right. But if you let them get off on that work that they don't feel good about, then that becomes a pattern in their life. Becomes a pattern of, well, I don't have to care a lot. And even though I don't feel really good inside about it, they're not going to care. So if they're not going to care, why should I try more?
But it turns into, it starts for, oh, this drawing's not good enough, but it doesn't matter. But then it turns into, well, I'm not good enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you see, that's again, that boundary of, if I speak to you like that, okay, badly, and you let it go, oh, okay, you have not put your boundary in as a parent, a mother, a father. Right. Oh, because they testing it. And you see, that's that first time. No, we don't speak to each other like that, because I don't speak to you. We don't speak like that. I understand that you are frustrated or whatever.
I agree.
That work comes and you go, you don't have to scream and break the child down, because the child realizes, oh, my parent does care. This is not good. Go and do that again. And then sometimes, and then there'll be temper tantrums and they'll rush it. And sometimes it's going to be a late night, because I do bring it to the children. Your boss and the person that you work for one day, or whatever you're going to do, is not going to care about that. You are going to have to show your best.
Right. I agree. I agree 1000%. And it does, like the way I bring it to my children, because I've one at Seasons of 7 and one that I'm homeschooling, is I will always say, so is the work that you're doing commensurate with the amount of work you think Gerard or Daniela or Jaya spent preparing your lesson? And then to my child that's homeschooling, is the work that you're giving me, especially if you know they're not doing their best, is the work that you're giving me commensurate with what I spent planning your lesson? And honestly, moms that are listening, if you didn't do any planning and you didn't do any work, you have to ask yourself, oh, if I'm not putting my best in, why am I expecting their best?
Right.
So it's a relationship. You putting your best in and you expecting their best from them. That's
what's beautiful about Seasons of 7, is that you do get to have your child at home.
Yes.
And greenhouse them and, help raise them.
You have somebody else do that.
You have somebody else to help you hold the line.
Right. Absolutely. But again, like seriously, if you've got a child, if you're listening and you've got a child at Seasons of 7 and they're not doing the work, that's a question to say, like, is this, how much planning do you think Mr. Gerard put into his lesson today?
100%.
And use your teacher, schedule a Zoom.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think that's so important. And if you're a parent and you're homeschooling, come to office hours. I will help you work through that piece as well. I feel like that's like, we have parent office hours for parents that are at Seasons of 7. And then if you're with Waldorf Essentials, we have office hours there, because I feel like this is an important piece. Like, and this is a piece that often I see homeschoolers especially get to a certain age and they're like throwing their hands up. You cannot, you have to keep holding the line.
But I know that Gerard has met with parents and he's asked them, they've asked for advice, and he said, do you really want my advice?
Right. No. And I love that.
And I love that.
I think that, but I think as a teacher and as somebody who does the same, I go, do you really want me to tell you what I think? Because if you do, sit down and take notes.
and you know what happens? You can't take it personally, but you sometimes look at the work and you feel, oh, really? But you know what? A beautiful moment has passed. You now, for example, in class 6, they can't sketch everything they have to sketch. I want to see their pictures. So, for example, second week of class 1, I want you to draw from your imagination because I want to see what you can do. When we have a Zoom lesson, I want to see what you draw. Follow me. Then you do it beautifully, but then why are you not doing it here in this structured time? You do it. So you've got to, and I've said to parents, do you understand that if you stick to getting up 9 o'clock, doing this, all of these, your notes in class 6 now become copious. I mean, it's 3 boards full, okay? Because you're now in class 6. You can't write me a paragraph about the Andes. It's a big mountain and it's cold. No. There's no. I need 17 more pages, So that was like a 15-minute video. You can't give me that. And if you get to that, there is that safety. The children go quiet, and there's quiet in your house because now we're working on our notes. And there's the sense of accomplishment. Now go and climb your tree. It's quick. It's actually very quick. And you see, this is the blessing in class 1 because, oh yes, we're doing our little numbers and it's not copious amounts of work, but speak to someone in class 6 and you'll see you've got a project, you've got math sheets,
But what's beautiful is it grows with the child.
Right. It totally does. Regardless. Yes, completely.
And it's not that
it should grow. It should be harder in class 6 than it is in class.
Correct.
But if you grew with them, it doesn't feel like such a mountain.
100%. Because, we always make the joke of, okay, so I always tease these parents, oh, you want algebra in class 1. That's never going to happen, right? But I think that. But can your child draw a tree that doesn't look like, or a person that doesn't have a hole in its head? You get to that place where you say to a child, I always make that joke. I draw a stick figure on the board, and I say, is that what a human being looks like? If I saw someone like that, I'd run the other way. And then the children get it, because then you take the side of the crayon and you draw a human being. And you have actually teased them a little bit, but they can see, okay, I'm never drawing a stick man for Mr. Siepker again. You know what I mean? So you choose your battles. And I think that's with anything that you do with your child, And some days it is your way. It is, and it's not easy. Your heart starts to beat fast and you think, oh my gosh, we're going to have conflict now. But it's because you want them to do this right and that you don't have that conversation again.
I agree 1000%. You two are both amazing humans.
Thank you. Gerard, I just want to thank you so much. You're such a great mentor for families because you are firm and you have high standards, but you're also kind and warm. And it's such a...
Thank you. I mean, the Ceric Streak works. I think it tempers you, and I think we're all trying our best. So thank you.
I think the older I get as a Ceric, the more I'm like, oh.
Me too.
I don't have to be so loud.
Move on. And it's beautiful. Find something else to do.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Please join us for our next podcast. Thank you for joining us.
It's anything like our experience. We've been with Miss Daniela for 2 years. There's some transition period in the beginning for sure to get the rhythm down of just something new. But beyond that, it's the greatest gift for myself and my kids compared to us trying to struggle through homeschooling on our own in the beginning. And I do try to attend the parent office hours, and I highly recommend trying to do that if you can, because it really has become a really beautiful part of, I think, all of our weeks when we meet there and get to ask all kinds of questions and talk about all kinds of subjects. But it's wonderful. I love it.
Thank you so much for sharing. There's nothing like a returning family to help spread the love.